Rent Crisis Survival Kit. Congratulations, survivor. You've officially made it through another month of British housing. You deserve a medal, but instead we've created something even better. The Rent Crisis Survival Kit. Your all-in-one defense system against a country that thinks a one-bed flat can legally be 12 square meters. Inside, you'll find Rent Rage Relief Spray, scientifically engineered to stop you from screaming every time you open Rightmove. Side effects include calmness, acceptance, and a temporary loss of the will to riot. Next, the Gornator Generator. Because landlords be like, do you earn 3 times the national GDP? No? Then do you know someone who does? With this device, your Gornator is always employed, credible, and somehow still alive after the cost of living crisis. And of course we had to include Landlord Repellent, the spray that keeps them away when they start saying things like, it's not damp, it's atmospheric. Or, the rent is rising because your area is becoming more desirable. Sir, I'm desirable, not this postcode. So don't wait, don't suffer, don't cry into your heating bill. Get the Rent Crisis Survival Kit today, because the only thing climbing faster than rent is your blood pressure. Are you tired? Emotionally dehydrated? Spiritually bankrupt from paying £1,700 for a cupboard with a window? Well, wipe those tears, champ. Introducing Rent Rage Relief Spray. The first spray engineered specifically for people who live in a country where rent grows faster than mold in a student flat. Just spritz it lightly across your face. Feel that? That's the sound of your anger being deported. Well, use it before opening a landlord's email, viewing a studio flat that's actually a wardrobe, checking a mortgage calculator just for fun, or walking past a van dweller who actually has more square footage than you. And don't worry, if symptoms of hope occur, stop using immediately and consult your nearest pessimist.
Let's be honest, Britain loves a distraction. We adore a good moral panic, especially when it lets us pretend the real crisis isn't the thing strangling us in broad daylight. And the latest episode of Let's Blame the Wrong People Bristol edition has the whole city frothing at the mouth because, wait for it, people are living in vans on the downs. Vans. On the grass. Oh horror, oh terror. Oh protect the sacred shrubbery from the peasants. Meanwhile, the rent in this city is onboarding itself into outer space like it's doing a placement year at NASA. But no. Don't look at the house prices doing Olympic-level pole vaulting over every working-class person's skull. Don't look at the landlords demanding your annual income be 30 times the rent like you're auditioning for The Apprentice Blood Sacrifice edition. Don't look at the fact a one-bedroom broom cupboard in Bishopston now costs more than a small nation's GDP. Focus on the real villain. The person living in a 2006 Ford Transit with a solar panel glued on top, because in Britain we don't solve problems. We arrest them, fine them, and relocate them slightly to the left. Let's set the stage. Bristol City Council, a group that can barely organise a recycling schedule without sparking a city-wide nervous breakdown, has decided the true threat to civic harmony is the handful of humans who had the audacity to be priced out of existence. 60 to 100 people living in vehicles, a few caravans minding their business, about 650 van dwellers across the city. In a rational nation, this would be a sign, a big neon sign, reading, "Your housing system is in cardiac arrest." But this is Britain. We do vibes, not logic. So instead of lowering rent, regulating landlords, or maybe, just spitballing here, making housing affordable for the people who actually live here, the city gets busy drafting plans to chase these vehicle dwellers off the downs like they're foxes at a countryside wedding. Oh, and don't forget the moral panic. Someone found human waste in a bush. Human waste. In nature. Imagine. The way these people are carrying on, you'd think the Downs was some kind of sacred temple instead of a massive outdoor dog toilet where half of Bristol lets their Labradors do number 2s without a bag in sight. But suddenly it's the sanitation crisis, the threat to public order, the blight on Clifton's hallowed soil. No one said a peep when the students were leaving half a Tesco meal deal embedded in the grass during Balloon Fiesta week. But now the city's poor have gathered in metal shells on wheels, and suddenly we're collapsing into Edwardian fainting spells. The hypocrisy smells stronger than the alleged waste. But let's zoom out for a second. People don't decide to live in vans because it's quirky. They're not all some Pinterest core nomads sipping turmeric lattes while journaling under a fairy-like canopy. Most of them are working, yes, working, full or part-time. Some are nurses, builders, artists, students, people with jobs, dreams, trauma, debt, degrees, and the misfortune of trying to survive in a city where rent behaves like a possessed Pokemon that evolves every 3 months. Average rent in Bristol? Around $1,800 a month. Average income? Not $1,800 a month. I repeat, not $1,800 a month. You have people making $1,200 trying to pay $900 in rent. Left with $300 to live, to eat, to exist, to breathe, to afford a bus pass that's now somehow $80 for the privilege of sitting in traffic with a stranger's armpit pressed against your cheek. And landlords, a species studied only in horror documentaries, have the audacity to say, if you want this flat, your income must be 2.5 to 3.5 times the monthly rent. Oh word? So for a 1,400 flat, I must earn between 3,500 and 5,000 a month. In this economy, with these wages, with this government that refuses to feed children because it's not fiscally responsible. This is the same government that spent $1 million painting the Union Jack on random things like it was doing a patriotic episode of RuPaul's Drag Race. And Britain doesn't even have food stamps, no nutritional subsidies, nothing. We're out here raw dogging capitalism with a lukewarm meal deal and a prayer. Parents are struggling, young adults are struggling. Everyone under the age of 45 looks like they've been hollowed out by the national debt. People are literally choosing between heating and eating, and somehow the council still thinks the true issue is mobile squatters ruining the aesthetic of the Downs. Y'all, the aesthetic of the Downs is cows and joggers. No one is flying in from Monaco to admire the untouched purity of some patch of grass between Stoke Bishop and Clifton. Newsflash. The van dwellers didn't break Bristol. Bristol broke them. A society that cannot house people equals a failed state. Let's say it plain. This isn't antisocial behaviour. This isn't public nuisance. This isn't threats to heritage land. This is a symptom of a national disgrace. Britain is falling apart, and we're pretending it's the hippies in caravans doing the damage. You can clear the Downs today. Fine. Send police. Send fences. Send whatever new acronym the Home Office cooked up to justify feeling important. But the problem won't disappear. It will move. From the Downs, to Redland, to Southmead, to Easton, to wherever the next patch of council land becomes inconvenient. Because this isn't a sanitation issue. It's a poverty issue, a rent issue, a wage issue, a Britain has forgotten its people exist issue. And have you noticed, whenever Britain can't solve a problem, it blames the nearest powerless group: homeless, criminals, renters, entitled, students, lazy, migrants, invaders, people living in vans, dirty nuisances, politicians, checks notes. Oh, they're fine, give them a raise. Let's talk about fragile middle-class rage for a second, because some of the loudest voices demanding a crackdown are homeowners whose mortgage payments are smaller than the average rent today, people who bought their houses in 1992 for the price of a luxury coat. Suddenly they're furious because a van dared appear within 200 metres of their postcode. I pay council tax, I deserve peace, but can't extend that same logic to the people sleeping in the back of a Vauxhall Vivaro because their wages don't even cover private rent. Funny how people who worked hard for what they have assume everyone else didn't. Funny how quickly compassion evaporates when poverty becomes visible. Funny how a caravan becomes unbearable but skyrocketing rent doesn't. Human suffering, whatever. Human waste near their dog-walking trail. Call the army. Let's get even realer. Bristol has 650 vehicle dwellers now. Not 6, not 60, 650. That is not an inconvenience. It's a statistic screaming for attention. You could put it on a billboard. Welcome to Bristol, where housing is an extreme sport. Because if more people are living in cars than in some apartment blocks, your city is not thriving, it's malfunctioning. And yet, the solution on the table is move them. Move them where? Into the rental market that's been flaming like the pits of Mordor since 2019, into temporary accommodation that has a queue longer than the NHS waiting list, into shelters that are already full. This is like watching your house burn down and deciding to buy a scented candle. And when councils talk about designated sites, let's be honest, that's code. Not even subtle code. It means exile, marginalisation, containment. Push the poor to the edges of the city where the wealthy don't have to see them. Out of sight, out of mind, out of compassion. It's the British way. We don't solve homelessness. We sweep it. We don't fix housing. We police it. We don't lower rent. We raise fences. We don't build affordability. We build resentment. Let me say something that might rattle a few estates. I actually sympathise with the people living in their vans, deeply. And if you're honest, you do too. Because we all know, every single one of us, that we are only 2 bad months away from joining them. 1 job loss, 1 illness, 1 rent increase, 1 landlord renovating your flat into a more profitable Airbnb. The line between stability and survival has never been thinner. Bristol isn't becoming a van life trend. It's becoming a warning sign, a big flashing red one, with alarms and smoke. And yet we're all pretending the biggest threat facing the city is the existence of too many parking spaces with humans in them. Let's drag the landlords for a second because they've been far too quiet in this chaos. How are you charging $1,700 for a flat where the windows rattle like ghost maracas every time someone coughs outside? How are you asking for a guarantor with an income of $60,000 when even the Prime Minister can't get that right now? How do you justify demanding 3 months' rent up front just because someone dared be born in the 1990s instead of inheriting property like a proper British citizen? How? With what conscience? With what moral compass? Landlords should come with warning labels. Caution may cause financial asphyxiation. But here's the real tea, all this noise about sanitation, safety, protecting the Downs. Meanwhile, the national statistics show renters now spend up to 45% of their income on housing. 45%. That is not a housing system, that is an economic chokehold, and the council wants to play clean up the caravans like it's doing city maintenance. Do you know what maintenance looks like? Building affordable homes, regulating landlords, capping rent, raising wages, protecting the vulnerable, creating pathways out of poverty. Not issuing parking notices, not banning sleeping in a vehicle, not sending enforcement officers to threaten people with nowhere else to go. And if we're being ruthlessly honest, Bristol should be ashamed. This is a city with 729 millionaires, 3 organic markets per square foot, entire neighbourhoods built on ethical branding, and more vegan bakeries than functioning GP surgeries. You'd think the kindness capital of the UK would have figured out how to not criminalise people who can't afford a flat. But nah. Bristol loves being progressive until progress requires compassion that isn't aesthetic. It's diversity until it's poor people. It's activism until it's inconvenient. It's sustainability until it's humans. Here's what nobody wants to admit. Van dwellers aren't the failure. They're the evidence. They are what happens when a city prices out its own people. They are what happens when wages stagnate while rent skyrockets. They are what happens when governments abandon responsibility. They are what happens when landlords become gatekeepers instead of providers. They are what happens when survival becomes a luxury. They are not the problem. They are the warning. And the city ignoring them is the true disgrace. So here's the moral of this entire farce. If your city is more outraged by a caravan on a patch of grass than by the fact that working people cannot afford a home, your priorities are not just skewed. They're morally bankrupt. Fix the housing crisis. Don't scapegoat the people surviving it, because one day soon, at this rate, the only people left living in Bristol will be landlords, students, and whoever can squeeze into a hatchback without dislocating a hip. And maybe then, just maybe, we'll realise the real waste on the Downs wasn't human waste. It was wasted compassion, wasted resources, wasted chances to build something better. But hey, at least the grass was tidy. Not left, not right, just real.